Today, we're talking about what happens once the INFJ finally stops trying to be social. The INFJ is an introvert, but we're really good at those typical extroverted things as relationships or trying to make others feel something, creating harmony, being kind, and all of those aspects are part of being an INFJ. But this is a skill. It's not who we are. And most of the time, we actually think we have to be more social. We have to do everything to be part of a community because that is just the norm. And everybody will tell you that you're doing something wrong. People will tell you, you shouldn't be such a hermit. People will tell you, oh, why aren't you hanging out with those friends? Why aren't you doing those certain things? There's something wrong with you. You have to change. And if you hear this over and over again, and if you don't have examples of other INFJs who embrace their unique being, right, you feel that there's something you have to change. And it's this ambivalent feeling of, I'm not doing things that excite me. I'm not doing things that make me feel like I'm me. But this is the only way how others are not nagging me. But today we're going to find out what this is all about. Like what happens once you really say, forget it. I'm not going to be social anymore. I'm not going to try to be somebody that others will accept. What happens then? Today, we're going to talk about exactly that because I can tell you not only from personal experience, but also through, working with so many INFJs through bootcamp and like one-on-one coaching and so on, what happens and how much your life can change once you embrace this unique trait of yours.
Hey INFJs, if you ever felt like you're living life on someone else's term, this is for you. My INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp is where we transform overwhelm into aligned action together. It's not just lessons, it's a community, support, life mentorship, and a deep frequency shift into who you were always meant to be. So our next live call is this Saturday, July 26th. So now's the perfect time to join our amazing community of INFJs creating that INFJ Epic Life together. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. We're tapping into INFJ relationships. So join now and let's get your Epic Life started.
So back on point, what happens once you accept once and for all, I'm not about that life? You will have the life of your dreams. I can tell you this because it's such a huge difference once you understand I am different and I'm not going to try to be accepted for something that I'm not. It is a scary concept because it really is about, showing even more of those aspects that are different about you. And fortunately, we do have a growing INFJ community. We do have those examples of other INFJs living their best life. And we see the representation and how well it can work. Because once you see this, it is much easier to align to that mindset of, I don't need to hang out with people every day. I don't need to have, 50 friends. I mean, INFJs to begin with have a small, amount of friends, but very often we feel obligated to be there for them, to serve others, to be in such a relationship with them, particularly in friendships where it's all about, I'm helping the other person. I'm their guide. I'm the martyr who makes that happen. I'm the mentor. I'm the one who gives more into that relationship than I'm getting back. What will happen if you say, I'm not putting more into that relationship than I'm getting back? That is scary because we as INFJs have learned all our life that the reason why people accept us is because of everything we do for them. And in order to do that, we, try to be more normal. We try to be how everybody else is. And the more you try to do that, the less in alignment you are with your inner power. We're less in alignment with the things that are actually going to make us feel more alive and create the results we want. So what do we do then? Like, how do we get to this place? Well, first off, we have to be willing to make those sacrifices. We have to be willing to say, I'm going to stop giving more into this situation or this relationship than I'm getting back. Maybe step by step. Maybe it's not something you can do overnight, but it's something which you can, push for yourself more and more. And you see that with every step that you take, with every step that you pull back, you're not going to stay in a position where you don't, feel anything. It's not that you just say, okay, I'm going to create this situation where I have this, independence and then I don't have any relationships left. We've talked about this in other videos that there is like this three-part step. The first one is the codependence, where a lot of INFJs live, where I was in for the longest time, where, you are in relationships with people, friendships, coworkers, whatever it may be, family, and it's all based on you playing a role and you being there for them. The next step is the independent state, where you are giving that all up and you're pretty much an island. And this in itself is not going to fulfill you. It's definitely better and it requires, a certain amount of courage to get to that place. Once you're there, you're saying, I'm never going back, right? Because I don't need this anymore. But there's more to life than that. And that is the next step, which is interdependence. And that happens once you start living the life that is how you want it to be. And as I said, this is not something you will see portrayed in movies or how your friends live their lives, but it's something that feels natural to you. And we have to dare to step out of that norm. We might think we as INFJs, we are already different, but I promise you, very often we're keeping so much hidden because we say, people are going to judge me even more. If I say what I really mean, people are not going to understand it. If I live my life the way I want to live it, and it's different than all the norms I know, right? It's about like living circumstances. It's about like the way you work. It's so much different than living those lives that the social atmosphere says are the important and the right ones. See, this is the difficulty for INFJs. We are so aware of what society actually wants, how you would have to behave in order to fit in. We're really, really good at that, knowing what it takes. And because we know it, we have this problem because we then say, I have to make a choice here. I either have to live according to those rules or I live, how I want to live. And it seems like a choice that is so brutal because you're giving up so much connection that so many INFJs don't dare to take that. But I promise you, it's definitely worth it. And you don't have to do it by yourself. That's why we have this community. That's why you see, oh, okay, I'm not the only one who does this. And to step out of those expectations. ISTJs, for example, they do their own thing all the time, but they're not aware of those social constructs that are, living in those unspoken, atmospheres. And because they're not aware of it, they actually think their way of living is the right one and they're not even questioning it. We have a different kind of problem. We question it all the time because we're so aware of that discrepancy. I can promise you one thing though. The more you go down that rabbit hole of, living your own life and making decisions that are based on how you feel about certain things, so the way you live, who you're living with, where you're living, the kind of job that you have. Maybe you decide to do something that is, just different than what everybody else thinks. When I first got out of that typical rat race and that life that I felt I had to do and to live, once I stepped out of it, I felt like I just quit. I felt on a certain level that I gave up. I gave up that game. But it is necessary to give up that game because it's not working in your favor. We're never going to master the game of that social atmosphere because even if we did everything right, we would know that it's a facade. We would know that this is not something that is sustainable because it doesn't make us happy. On the other hand, if you dare to go out of the norm, to live outside of the box, to do more and more things that seem exciting to you but aren't the norm, the less you're going to be aware of how different that actually is to how others are living their life. Because what we don't know beforehand is how fully alive you will feel the more you go down that road. It is something that gets you addicted in a positive way because you fill yourself up like no other role you were playing or any social feedback you were getting. Nothing of that can compare to how you feel about living that life that makes you excited. You can be proud of your life. You can do something where you say to yourself, yeah, I did that. I'm so excited I did that. Like that makes me feel like I'm a success. You won't care then anymore if somebody else thinks, oh, you know, you're not doing that. I, for example, had this with helping people, and not in a way of I'm helping people in a codependent way because I was always doing that, but to sort of give to the outside and to do that without an agenda. For me, that meant like starting this channel. In the beginning, this wasn't something that was generating any income for me. I thought maybe one day this could be something, but mainly I did it because it added something to my life. And so, no matter who would come into my life and would try to make me feel like I'm not being, giving enough, I didn't think that because I knew that with my gift, I was already making something. I was creating something. I was helping something. I was sharing my world. And that in itself was something that I knew. So I wasn't aware of if people are questioning it. We're not looking at those things that we have no insecurities about. If somebody would have looked at me and said, oh, what kind of shoes is she wearing? Or, what's that kind of hairstyle? Like, I wouldn't care because I didn't have any insecurities on that topic. I did have insecurities when it came to, am I giving enough? Am I a good person? Like, all those things that every single one of us feels in different areas, but things that we care about, things that on some level we feel like we're not living out. And those are the things that we need to do. Those are the aspects that we need to tap into, and not in a way of what would I need to do in order to make other people feel like I'm doing something great, right? No, it's about like, what would you have to do so no matter what other people would say, you wouldn't care because you would know that you're living the life that you want and you're doing the things that are important to you. If you would look at your life from the outside, you would think you're living an exciting life and a great life. And believe it or not, this kind of life comes at the price of all of those social interactions that you feel like you have to have. Because you would be just a weirdo if you wouldn't have them. You would be totally different and outside of your mind, and there's no way you could fit in if you would actually do what you want, which is, talking to somebody maybe once a week and very sporadically, maybe only over text, and caring about the things that matter to you. All of that excess energy that you give towards others in order to be somehow accepted. Do you know what you can achieve with this kind of energy? What kind of life you can build for yourself? It is really the difference about being the supporting role in somebody else's movie. And we as INFJ know we play so many supporting roles in so many of other people's movies from our perspective. And giving that up to a big extent in order to be the main character of your movie. And by doing that, you're actually going to help people way more. You're going to be somebody who's a representation of choosing yourself and showing up and sharing that and living with purpose and living with a mission. For us INFJs, this is super important. And I promise you, once you remove this aspect of having to be social just because you can, just because you're so great at that skill, and you only have the social interactions that are necessary for you and where you don't feel like, oh, I'm just being rude, and always ask yourself, are you really giving as much in that relationship as you're getting back? If you feel like I have to give 5 times more in order for this to be, any kind of way normal, think again. If you're getting 30% and you're giving 70%, you cannot expect the other person to give more. Start giving those 30% as well. So it's 30-30, which, in the end is like 50-50, but you have all that excess energy that you can then put into creating that life of yours. It is an energy thing, and it will make the biggest difference in your life. It's something that you as an INFJ get to experience, and it's worth it every single time.
Now's the time. If something in you feels ready, don't wait. Join the INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp before our live call on Saturday, July 26th. So you get access to the private community, guided lessons, life mentorship, and lifetime access to all future rounds. This isn't just about learning, it's about stepping into the version of you who already knows they're worth it. Let's do this together. Click the link in the description and join now.
And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video on what happens once the INFJ accepts their mind-blowing name.